Well, I'm gonna crack into this.
Starving for a beer.
Welcome back to the Council of Elrond podcast, guys, the number one Lord of the Rings podcast. And today we will be discussing all that ails you and beers you. That's right. Today we are talking beers, ales, wines, and all that jazz in Middle-earth, but also all the taverns and places where Tolkien mentions an inn or a pub. So this is going to be a fun episode, guys. So join us for a few games and perhaps a drink or two along the way if you do partake. Obviously, if you want to have water, you can sip along to that, or your non-alcoholic Guinness or Heineken or whatever you're sipping on. But but be aware, you are more than likely to learn a thing or two and expand your knowledge on Lord of the Rings, at least the drinking culture in the process. Welcome, Johnny. Let's begin. Welcome back to the podcast. How are you feeling?
Cheers. I'm feeling good, Dave. I'm feeling good. We've just off air. We've just cracked into a couple of lovely little beers here, so I'm feeling good. Even though it is a Tuesday evening, I feel like it's Friday.
Yeah, we may as well tell people what we're drinking. What are we having? I'm having a Mad Libz, which is a Spanish/English beer. It's an English beer, but it's supposed to...
They're pretending to be Spanish.
They're pretended to be Spanish, but like Johnny. Just kidding.
Yeah, a little bit. I am drinking an Irish beer. It is called Hop House. It is an Irish lager. It is brewed by Arthur Guinness himself.
Thank God.
So, yeah.
To Arthur.
And it says, we have, if you can see it there, if you're watching, you can see Arthur's signature there on the front of it. But,
so he signed your bottle?
He signed it. Fair play to him. He came out of the grave and he signed my beer. And, fair play to him. It's actually lovely. It's, I wasn't too fond of it initially. I was like, it's a bit too hoppy.
Yeah.
Since it's called Hop House.
Too much hop, not enough house.
Yeah, exactly. If you play house music and you have a bit of this, you're like...
Great for hopscotch if you're drinking and hopscotching. Especially if you're hopscotching around your house. And you're having some scotch while you're having hopscotch and hop house. Yeah, it's great. They pair really well together.
Yeah. If you have only got one leg and you're in your house and you're hopping around the house,
have a hop house. And then have a scotch while you hopscotch out of the house. Anyways.
I wonder why we've never been asked to do an ad for any sort of beers like Hop House or that. I think we'd be great. Yeah, exactly. We've clearly nailed that.
Anyways, we will be talking about not just beers and ales, but we will be getting into wines and all sorts of alcoholic beverages in this episode. But I think to kickstart this episode, Johnny, I want to test your beer knowledge of the movies in particular. So I'm going to call this game Beer Pressure Quotes. Listeners can play along as well, so if you know the answer, Johnny, maybe give them a second or two to think. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to call out a name of a Lord of the Rings character, and if you have to give me you have to give me a quote that they have in any of the movies relating to alcohol. So, for example, if I say Pippin, you would say...
It comes in pints.
Exactly. Well done. That is the exact. Well, that's exactly what we're looking for. So that's a easier one. Also, if you can't think of any,
made me sweat.
If you can't think, you lose, and you have to take a drink. So that's how we do it.
Think you drink. I see.
Yes.
So we play like a podcast live drinking game. Is that what we're doing right now?
I mean, we'll see how it goes. By the way, if you can't think immediately, I can give you a hint. But let's start off. So I am giving the name. You're going to throw back to me a quote from this character, right? So let's start off with Gimli.
Malt beer.
That is the quote. Yes, well done.
Okay,
Malt
yeah.
Beer.
Fresh
meat, fresh off the bone, something like that, or ripe off the bone. I think you might say. Right.
Oh.
Numero dos. Bilbo.
This is a tough game, Dave. This is a very sneaky little game.
Yeah, but I like having games that are incorporated into our podcast lately.
Does it have to be him saying it, or can it be somebody's... Oh, well, I mean, like, for example, because I have a quote of Frodo speaking to Bilbo and him confirming said drink.
Oh,
Is that what we're going for?
No.
Or will that do as well?
Well, if Bilbo says a drink, then that's acceptable, yeah.
Well, he doesn't say the drink, but as somebody asks him if he's been drinking it, he says that he has.
No. Well, yes, but that's not the point.
Very good, you got it. So when he says, Bilbo, have you been at the Gaffer's home ale, home brew?
Brew, I think it is, yeah.
Bilbo, have you been at the Gaffer's home brew? He says, no. Well, yes, but that's not the point.
Yeah, I love that. Now it is do you want me to give you a clue?
I think I might have to go for a clue.
Right, so within this quote, he mentions a specific year.
Ah, very good year. Almost as old as I am.
Yeah, exactly. That is it.
So
that's part of it.
Yeah. What's the quote? We could break out the old vineyard. What's the year? No, something 97 or something like that. 1297.
Oh, so
1296.
Close. Yes, there you go.
1296. Almost as old as I am.
Yeah, I'll read out the full quote. It's tea, or maybe something a little stronger. I've got a few bottles of the old vineyard left. 1296. Very good year. Almost as old as I am.
I've got a few bottles of the old vineyard left. 1296. Very good year. Almost as old as I am.
Bilbo, when's he chugging ales? But then I suppose I did think of him also getting into the Gaffer's homebrew. Just by chance, any of our listeners who don't know who the Gaffer is, Dave, would you like to enlighten them?
The Gaffer would be Sam's papa.
That's correct, yes. So Samwise Gamgee's father was lovingly known as the Gaffer around the Shire. Everybody called him the Gaffer, and we do see that a couple of times. Another brownie point or another drink question for you, Dave. Ooh. When's the other time we see the Gaffer being mentioned in the trilogy movies?
When Sam is in Cirith Ungol and he's killing a bunch of orcs and he goes, "That's for Frodo! That's for the Shire! And that one's for my old Gaffer!"
Very good, very good. Well, we do actually see him at one point as well when they're having a drink together.
Yeah.
And they say, that old Bilbo Baggins, cracked he was. And then the Gaffer says, and there's young Frodo, cracking he is. And he says, I'm proud of it, Gaffer. It's just to our listeners, this is all Dave and I do. It's we're like, aha, but can you think of the time when Shelob says this?
No, do you know the Gaffer's actual name?
Oh, God, Dave. Oh, yeah. You're going to get me here. Mr. Gamgee?
I think it's Hamfast Gamgee.
Hamfast. Ooh, good man. Fair play to you.
Right, let's get cracking.
I mean, I have to drink.
Yeah, you take a drink there. Well, I'm just drinking all the time, so.
Me too.
So the next character is Legolas.
He says, so it's a drinking game. He talks about the effects. He says, I feel a slight tingling in my fingers.
Yes.
I think it's affecting me.
Yes, exactly. I was prepared to accept both answers. One quote is, I'm beginning to feel something. A slight tingling in my fingers. I think it's affecting me. And then he also says, so it's a drinking game. Those are my two. Well done. A good one I think you'd like is Boromir.
Break out the ale. These men are thirsty.
Brilliant. Well done. And finally, we have, this one might be a toughie, Saruman.
Saruman.
Yes. And remember, we do have clues.
Yeah, but I know that in the Fellowship of the Ring, when Gandalf goes on his holidays to Isengard, Saruman invites him in and they have a little glass of red wine, a little glass of Chianti or something.
It looks like a Chardonnay or something.
Well, Chardonnay is white. So
sorry, not Chardonnay. What do old grannies drink again?
Sherry.
Sherry. That's what it looks like.
Yeah. Do I need a clue on this one?
I'll give you a clue, because the clue doesn't give much away. It just tells you around the time when he says it.
Okay, and again, just to confirm, he mentions a alcoholic drink.
He doesn't mention a specific drink, but he refers to the activity of...
I know what it is.
Right.
I know what it is. He says, what is Rohan but a thatched barn where brigards drink in the reek?
Yes, what is Rohan but a thatched barn where brigands drink in the reek?
Yeah, I can't believe I got there.
Yeah, brigands drink in the reek, not
brigands. I thought it was brigards. Oh, yeah. Brigands and dotards.
Ent-Draughts. Yeah, no, that's all we have from this
man.
game. Beer
Absolutely
pressure
nailed
quotes. So well done, congratulations. And
Beer pressure. I like it.
and guys, let me know how you got on as well. Were you able to compete with Johnny? I think Johnny, you got 5 out of 5, 1 or 2 with clues, but I think you did a pretty.
Took me a minute to get going there.
Job. Yeah,
Bilbo, I was like, what?
Bilbo threw you off because he started thinking of it's all beers and ales and hobbits drinking. But
it did take me a second, yeah. I thought you were gonna ask for another Gimli one of that one when they were in the drinking game as well.
No, well, yeah, I was going to accept whatever you could, but I had written down a few answers myself.
Break out the ale! These men are thirsty!
I was thinking maybe we could turn this into a little drinking game. I was trying to think of something earlier, and I couldn't think of exactly how to create a drinking game, but perhaps every time we mention a Tolkien character for the first time, we take a drink. So obviously we've mentioned a few, like Boromir, Saruman, Legolas.
I gotta have like 15 drinks now.
Yeah, no, I think we'll start from now. So anytime either one of us mentions any character, then yeah. So welcome back to the Council of Elrond, guys. Drink.
If you're like driving your car or something right now, please don't drink. Please don't join us.
Please pull over and drink.
Pull over and then continue. No, we're only joking. Have sip away on your Coke Zero or whatever you have it, or push pause, wait till later, and go home and then turn this on and enjoy this episode with a nice cool beer in the evening. And be safe.
Be safe. Don't be sorry. Please drink responsible, guys. This is just for myself and Johnny. We're having a good time, but if you want to partake with us, please be in a safe environment to do so. Let's get into the actual episode. So
let's go for it.
What did the people in Middle-earth actually drink? Of course, we've mentioned a few quotes there, but let's start off with the elves. So what do the elves drink? Johnny, can you think of a time in the movies or in the books where elves drank? Let's try aim for books, because obviously we have like Legolas drinking in that scene that we already discussed, but it's not really canon, is it?
No, it's not. But what do they drink?
So let me put this to you. There is a very specific moment in the book, and I will say it's not the Lord of the Rings trilogy, but there is a very specific part of The Hobbit where we know of elves drinking.
Is it when they are supposed to be watching the dwarves, when the dwarves are in the dungeons, and they have a bit of a gathering, a bit of a get together, and they're having a few drinks, and they take their eye off the dwarves, and then they let them escape.
Yeah,
I don't remember. Were they drinking wine?
They were drinking wine. Exactly. There is the mention of wine being served. By the way, just to back up as well, there's mention of wine being served at the Council of Elrond as well. Elves seem to prefer...
That's right now.
That is right now.
Are you telling me wine's being served later?
I actually have a bottle of wine right behind my laptop here, so who knows? But to get into it, Thranduil has an extensive wine cellar with many sorts of wines for various occasions and recipients.
I can definitely see that. He's definitely like a wine connoisseur, Thranduil.
Oh, absolutely. But I actually have a question about that. Thranduil's butler and chief of the guards, they drink wine and get absolutely intoxicated in that chapter 9 of The Hobbit, Barrows Out of Bond. But why is it that Legolas doesn't seem to be affected by alcohol at all, whereas these two elves pass out drunk minutes after cracking into a few tinnies?
Well, those two were complete lightweights, and Legolas was a seasoned drinker.
Well,
I believe is the actual Tolkien canon answer.
Yeah, that's what Tolkien said. No, there is an actual reason. So
it's probably like lineage or something. Is it? He was royally good at drinking, basically.
No, it's nothing to do with Legolas or the two guys.
It's what they were drinking.
Exactly.
Powerful stuff.
It was very powerful stuff. The wine in question wasn't just any ordinary wine. It is in fact Dorwinian wine, and it is much stronger. In that same chapter 9, it reads, "It must be potent wine to make a wood elf drowsy. But this wine, it would seem, was the heady vintage of the great gardens of Dorwinion, not meant for his soldiers or his servants, but for the king's feast only, and for smaller bowls, not for the butler's great flagons. So there you have it. By the way, I also...
The butlers were drinking flagons of this, like, powerful wine.
Flagons, and of course in Ireland we have flagons too. They're 350ml bottles of vodka.
Yeah, I think that's only in Ireland. Like, I think even in England they don't call them flagons or anything. So in Ireland we have 250ml is called a naggin, 350ml is called... Sorry, 200ml. Is it? 200ml is a naggin, 350 is a flagon, or a shoulder. And then, yeah, that's it. And then you have also...
By the way, I just have to update. I did mention Thranduil in that last sentence, so we're going to have to...
Oh,
cheers.
Okay, to Thranduil. To Arthur.
God bless him. But staying on the subject of elves, we have another alcohol called Miruvar. Miruvar and Miruvore were types of cordial used by the Valar and the elves. So this would be the most famous of alcohols amongst the elves. We know they drank wine, but this is kind of like a sacred thing that only the elves would have had. And at least
it was a cordial.
It's a cordial, but it is heavily hinted at being an alcoholic drink. So I don't know. Are cordials in real life? Are they? They're that's just non-alcoholic, right? That's like a mixer.
Cordial for us would be a mixer, yeah. Like,
yeah,
you know,
it's like
you'd mix
honey,
it with water.
and that kind of. Yeah, well, I think in older times it's more like kind of a mead kind of style thing. But anyways, the Miruvore was the nectar of the Valar, made from Yavanna's flowers, poured during their festivals in Valinor. The word actually occurs in the lament sung by Galadriel, which I didn't want to go and bore you with.
Thank you.
The name Miruvar refers to a reviving cordial of the elves in Rivendell, a liquor with the power to grant renewed vigor and strength. Miruvar was clear and colourless with a pleasant fragrance. It was possibly a different substance, an imitation, in fact, to what I previously mentioned, Miruvare, and perhaps it was named after it. And I believe it's probably like the younger version of it, like Miruvare was like...
Look, let's just cut to the chase. How much is a pint of that stuff?
How many of those do I have to take to get me absolutely steaming?
Yeah. That's cool. So Yavanna herself was involved.
She was actually, she was part of a brewery. That's what she did when she grew up. She was creating some cordials and whatnot. Just to finish off on the elves as well, Gandalf has a flask of this cordial when they left Rivendell, and he used it to revitalize the fellowship at Caradhras. So that would be the elves. Now I'm sure there's probably other hints in other sections where they talk about them drinking other things, but it's mainly this wine and Miruvar. But yeah, I'm going to take a break for a second, Johnny, and give you a few Mad Libz questions. And at the end of this episode, I'm going to reveal exactly what you're creating. So you and I are fond of an old Mad Libz, isn't that right?
Oh, we are indeed.
We actually have a Christmas episode that's all about Lord of the Rings, Mad Libz. Was that Christmas themed as well, or was it just... How was that?
It was...
we were wearing
Christmas jumpers.
Yeah. Yeah, so guys, go and check out that episode. But, Johnny, I'm going to give you the Mad Libz, but also I'm going to ask you to try and keep your answers within the realm of possibilities in Middle-earth. Or like, you know, medieval-ish times. I don't want to hear answers like iPhone 12 and AK-47 or something like that. Or podcasting. Okay? So.
Right.
Okay,
I'll do my best.
I'll just give you 4 for now. So, and I'm going to write down your answers because I need them for later. I'm going to put away that. Right. First, Johnny, give me a body part.
Beard.
Give me a cardinal direction. For example, west or southeast.
South.
Give me a race in Middle-earth.
The 100-meter dash. We'll go for hobbits.
Hobbits?
4 hobbits.
That sounded exactly on point. By the way, I also realised that we mentioned Gandalf.
We're naming those. Oh yeah, and hobbits. Can we drink for hobbits? I don't know.
No, it has to be characters. It has to be Tolkien characters. It can't be races. Like the 100-meter dash. Give me an adjective.
Swift.
Moving on. Also,
That's it, is it?
I want it. Yeah, that's it for now. I'm going to ask you,
okay.
like throughout the episode, to give me some words, and then at the end, I will reveal. I'll have the grand reveal of what you have created. It'll probably be a mess. I hope it all goes to plan. Anyway.
Well, if I keep drinking, I'm not going to remember what a noun is.
Yeah. Also, I couldn't find an area to put this into the podcast, so I think this would be a very suitable place to just interject with a lovely song. I feel like there's going to be a lot of interjections in this podcast, but
I imagine so.
This is a song that features in the book and movies, and maybe Johnny, you could join in with me on the second verse, and I hope there's not going to be a big delay. So. Here we go. Oh, you can search far and wide. You can drink the whole town dry, but you'll never find a beer so brown as the one we drink in our hometown. You can drink your fancy ales. You can drink them by the flagon, but the only brew for the brave and true comes from the Green Dragon.
Hey!
Cheers.
Cheers. Very good. That was well sung. Well sung.
Good job for remembering all the lyrics. So let's move on swiftly to another race. And not the 100-meter dash, folks. This is the race of men. So, what do men drink? Obviously, we see beers and ales. We read ales associated with men quite a lot, such as Strider when he's in the Prancing Pony and in the wilderness enjoying a mug of ale, but also instances of wine, such as Denethor in The Return of the King. I think slowly, as he falls more and more into a depression, he's drinking more and more. But
Denethor is just sitting there like, it's 5 o'clock somewhere, am I right?
Yeah, sipping a cocktail. Like, yeah. So, Chaddy, we're talking men, as usual. So, can you name any publicans in Lord of the Rings? Any famous publicans out there?
Oh, yeah. Butterbur.
What's his first name?
This beer started to affect me.
I think it's affecting me.
His name is Barleyman Butterbur.
Exactly. And the etymology is barley man. So it's a great name for an ale brewer. And Gandalf at the Council of Elrond recounted... Oh, by the way, we mentioned Barleyman Butterbur. So let's have a drink. And Denethor, so that's 2 drinks.
Oh, God. Need a new drink.
I know we mentioned Strider, but that's not really his name, so I think we're going to let that stride.
I can see that one.
So Gandalf at the Council of Elrond, he recounted what he said to Barleyman after hearing the good news of Frodo's safety. That's another drink there.
Oh, jeez.
Anyways, what do we know of Mr. Butterbur's beer, Jonathan?
We know that it was delicious. It came in pints. According to the Jackson canon, and we know that Gandalf blessed this beer and it became the most delicious beer in all the land.
You're dead right. The quote is, "May your beer be laid under an enchantment of surpassing excellence for 7 years." So that was from the Council of Elrond, the Fellowship of the Ring. And also another quote I'd like to point out here, this is actually from Mr. Butterbur himself. He said, "What's the pony to him, or mugs o' beer? Not but what my beer is good, Gandalf. It's been uncommon good, since you came in the autumn of last year and put a word on it. And that's been a comfort in trouble, I will say." So I think it's nice. He's not a man of great vocabulary or great grammar, but he's a man that appreciates a good pint, and he likes to say thank you to Gandalf.
He doesn't have a good memory either, like, so he's not really good at most things. But you know what?
He's
a good barman
all the time. I'd love to have him up here in Dublin and just walk into some bar and see Barleyman there and just give him the nod, and he goes, "2 usuals, I see." And I would just be there by myself, but I'd be getting 2 of my usuals.
You can drink your fancy ales, you can drink them by the flagon, but the only brew for the brave and true comes from the Green Dragon.
Right, so Johnny, let's go with a few more Mad Libs. I'm going to ask you to name a feature of nature.
What do you mean by feature?
Well, like it could be a tree or a waterfall or a rock or something.
So not
like
that, not like an explosion or like that kind of like an eruption or a breeze or something like that.
Whatever you... I can't remember when I made this, if that was fit in.
So you've made this Mad Libz, have you?
I made this up, myself, You'd be
wow.
impressed to know. Yeah, you can throw a breeze or an eruption or whatever you want.
Okay, we'll go for a breeze, so.
Next one is name something a medieval knight might own.
A mace.
A mace?
Yeah, to spray in the eyes of any potential rapists.
Also a very popular shop in our country. Mace. Now, finally, name a colour.
Blue. No, yellow. No, we stick with blue.
Okay, perfect. Right, now, so moving on, let's get back into the podcast, the meat and bones again. Orcs. What the heck do orcs drink, and can you think of any times that we see orcs drinking?
So, of course, orcs drink grog, which, if you've ever played any Lord of the Rings games on the PlayStation, like Shadow of Mordor or any of those ones, or Shadow of War, wasn't that the other one? Of that same series. They were very, very cool, and obviously you'd be able to like sneak up on the little orc camps, and they'd be there drinking grog, and they have like drink offs in that game as well, where they'd you'd one orc would challenge another orc to like a drinking game, and you had to like interrupt their little processions, because whichever one of them won that would then level up to becoming like an orc chieftain or something, and you had to always like basically jump in and just kill everyone, and just like you couldn't let them level up. Do you remember that? You don't look
Not
like you.
really, no.
All right, okay. Well, anyway, that was something that happened. So they'd all be there drinking
Sounds
grog.
cool, though.
It was cool. Anyways, that's what they drink.
Grog.
And there is the moment that I was asking you about earlier was with... do you want to tell me which character it was? And then I'll get to the quote.
It is Ugluk, which is another
is.
new character. So let's have a cheers.
Cheers. So the quote was, "Give him some medicine, boys." And then he pours the grog into Mary's mouth. "God take his grog!"
Yes, exactly. That is what I was looking for. But I just have to say here, first of all, it actually never mentions the word grog in any of the books, but I think Tolkien's popularizing of the word orcs and what they represent, the word grog has also become so synonymous with orcs. So you had mentioned it there. We've got one of those games, the War of Mordor, the Shadow of Mordor.
Yeah.
But then very popularly in like the Dungeons and Dragons, Warhammer, other fantasy media, you're always seeing grog and orcs like go hand in hand. But that quote that you gave me there, this is another situation of, if you're a long-time listener of our podcast, me and Johnny had a debate about the line, that line was broken and that blade was broken. The scene with Merry and Pippin being carried by the orcs, and Johnny so eloquently says, "Can't hold his grog." Actually, on the Return of the King subtitles, he doesn't say the word grog. Do you know what he does say? Because I had started writing this episode before our most recent watch of the Return of the King, and I was really looking out for this because I was like, he says grog there, but I looked it up everywhere, and apparently there's no mention of the word grog in any of the books, in any of the movies.
Why I still don't accept that he says that line was broken. It's that blade for sure. That's what
okay. That is a previous debate.
We're going
People
back.
can
Yeah.
get it.
Okay, but yeah. Okay.
He doesn't say can't hold his grog. He says something else.
Does he say something that sounds like? Does he say something that sounds like grog?
Not really.
Bog.
No. Can't hold his bog. It's basically like he needs to take a shit really bad.
He's just there holding a poodle. He's like, can't hold his dog.
He's there like with a big giant pig. Can't hold his hog.
We can go on for days, guys, so we should probably stop. What does he
Wrap
say?
this.
Can't hold his...
No.
Can't hold his... Can't hold his ale. Can't hold his liquor. Can't hold his...
No. I will tell you now, because you won't get it, because unless, other than that instance, you mentioned how it's used in Shadow of Mordor, War of Mordor, Minecraft, Middle-earth mod as well, but the liquid given to the hobbits is actually almost like a medicine, referred to by Mary as orc draft in the book. So that's draft, Draught. And I watched it. I was keeping a very keen eye on the subtitles the last time we were watching it. It does say draft. Now, again, it sounds like the actor is saying grog or something.
That sounds familiar to me. And not that the sound of draft, but I'm pretty sure I've seen that before, because we often watch Lord of the Rings with subtitles on. And I'm pretty sure there's a few instances where I'm like, oh, I didn't really realize, or I didn't think he said that, or whatever.
But you don't have time to stop and think about
it. You're straight into the next scene. Yeah.
Yeah, I just think it's interesting because it's one of those where you listen to it every time, and whatever he says, it definitely ends in "Arr!" So if that's how he pronounces draft, I don't know. I just want to read a quick quote here from the Two Towers, the chapter "The Urukai." Ugluk thrust a flask between Pippin's teeth and poured some burning liquid down his throat. He felt a hot, fierce glow flow through him. The pain in his legs and ankles vanished. He could stand. So again, this is referring to it being more of a revitalizing medicine, I suppose. Also, I mentioned the name Pippin, so cheers.
Chaws.
But I just want to read this out as well. According to the the wiki page of Minecraft Lord of the Rings, and I know this is just a game and it's just some wiki page, but I thought it was an interesting quote. It says, Orc Draft, as in Orc Draft used in this game, Orc Draft is an invigorating drink used by orcs, which inflicts damage when drunk, but restores some hunger and grants speed and strength buffs. It is essentially Sauron's imitation of Elven Miruvar. So just like we mentioned earlier, Miruvar is that thing. It revitalizes you, like Gandalf revitalized the Fellowship at Caradhras. But this is the orc imitation, and I just think that's really cool. I don't know, is that really canon? I couldn't find any backup there, but I just love how whoever made this game is thinking of, like, you know, the orcs are like an imitation of the beautiful elves and stuff. And
that's so cool.
It's cool that their drink would mimic that also, right?
Yeah, that's really, really cool. I also like the idea of Gandalf going around with like a hip flask, just being like, here, don't tell your father I gave you that. No, just have a bit. Like your drunk uncle at a wedding or something. Like, here, get a bit of that into you there.
And I like as well how, like, it looks rank in the movies, the draft, but it is supposed to be revitalizing. And unlike grog, which does what it says in the tin, it makes you groggy when it's drunk, which is, you know, in all those games, like, they drink it to start feeling drunk and pass out and whatnot. Now, again, I'd like a quick segue to talk about if Middle-earth had named beers, what would they be? So, I've just been flat out online looking at all sorts of things to do with Lord of the Rings and beers, and there's actually not as much information out there as I thought, so I had to get a little bit creative in this episode. I found some fun names on Reddit, so I can read them out. And Johnny, maybe, I know I'm putting you on the spot a little bit here, but maybe if these will inspire you to come up with a name or two. And don't worry, if you need to think, maybe I can make some sharp edits in post. But anyways, some I found on Reddit are so Tree Beer, which I like, Rivend Ale, Misty Mountain Dew, and Prancing Pony Porter. So I like those. Some of them are fun, some of them are puns, and some are, you know, whatever. I
Misty
of course,
Mountain Dew?
Misty, like Mountain Dew, do you know?
Oh, like Mountain Dew. Oh, right. It's not
really. It's not beer, but it's still like
Mountain Dew.
I think
Okay, yeah.
Sounds like a nice drink, like the Misty Mountain Dew. But of course, I took some of these and I created some of my own. So if you want to hear some of mine, I have the following: a Dale Pale Ale, the Black Stout of Minas Morgul, the White Ale of Gondor. Wow, what is this? Vodka has, or else Kazet Rum. I have Buckleberry Beer, and finally Brandywine Brandy or Brandywine Wine, whichever you prefer. Guys, I want to hear your made-up Middle-earth themed beers and what names you would give, and send them on in. Can you think of any others off the top of your head?
If you'd asked me this before I started to drink, my creative brain might have been a bit better. I was trying to come up with like Fangorn. I was like, any words with an F?
The Fangorn flagon. Flangorn.
Or you could say the Faramir flagon as well would be another option. Boromir Brew, Haldir Hops.
The Legolas Lager. Dear hops. He certainly hops if you cut one of his legs off at Helm's Deep.
Yeah, I don't know. It's fun. We should open a brewery.
The Lurtz Lager. By the way, I'm not even going to think of the names that we mentioned there, so let's just have a nice cheers to that. Let's move swiftly on. Mead, Jonathan. What about Mead in Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit? Do we ever get any mentions? Can you think?
In the movies, like Mead.
In the Hobbit movie, there is in the Hobbit movie and the Hobbit book, there is an important part where Mead comes into play.
I can't remember now. So I would have to just bow to your ever incredible source of knowledge that you have, Dave.
So we see Mead being drunk in The Hobbit, in the book and the film, in one of the films. The dwarves drank Bjorn's mead from, quote, drinking bowls. Gandalf also drinks at least a quart of mead in the morning that he returns from tracking Bjorn to the Carrock. Also, the Elven King Thranduil shares barrels of mead with the dwarves. And we mentioned Bjorn again, so I'm going to have to take a drink for that. We also get a mention when Frodo, Sam and Pippin walk through the Shire on their way to Crickhollow. This is in the Fellowship of the Ring. They meet Gildor Inglorian. I'll take a drink to that. And his company of the High Elves. So the elves leave the hobbits some food and drink for their journey, including, quote, a clear, pale golden in colour. It had the scent of a honey made of many flowers and was wonderfully refreshing. So this would be mead. And of course now there's a more obvious reference to mead, and it is the name of King Theoden's hall. Now we obviously talked about King Theoden recently, so do you remember what his hall is called?
Meduseld?
Exactly.
Does there's some sort of a mead origin of that?
Yes. Well, first of all, I drank because we said Theoden.
Meduseld.
Tolkien.
I'm out of beer.
His translation of Meduseld would literally translate to Mead Hall or Mead Throne. I think this is kind of taken from Old English, so I thought that was kind of cool.
So when they call it the Golden Hall, it's actually just because they're looking at a lovely pint. They're like, "It's a golden beer there. Look at that now." It wants something to do with like the gold or the golden hair of whoever. It's
no.
It's named after a lovely pint of lager.
But I did think it was interesting when I read up on that, and all you think about is men and they're drinking ale and beer and whatnot. But there's a big reference here to Theoden's hall being the mead hall, which, you know, mead is a softer type drink. It's kind of more refreshing, floral, honey tasting, and not that I've ever had any, but I've seemed to learn.
It's like an IPA.
Yeah, exactly. It's like California torpedoes.
Yeah.
Do you need a top up on beer?
I do. I need to go grab another beer.
I'm out of my pint of beer as well.
Okay, shall we?
We'll be right back after these messages.
What's that? This, my friend, is a pint. It comes in pints. Oh. I can get you one.
So welcome back to the Council of Elrond, guys, the number one Lord of the Rings podcast in the world. And we're going to get straight back into the episode. But first of all, Johnny has just come back with a new beverage, and I'm going to crack into mine. Oh, shit! Oh. I brought that right up to the mic and it sprayed everywhere. So, Johnny, you're having a Guinness, but a special type of Guinness.
I'm going to use my little Nitro Surge pouring device. I've just charged it up.
Oh, there's beer everywhere.
So
I'm supporting a Birra Moretti, which I don't know why I'm going so foreign today. Like when I'm in the pub, I'm always drinking Guinness, but this is an Italian beer, and it's very small. Don't like it.
It is a very small one. Birra Moretti.
Birra Moretti.
Very good.
Let's carry on. Let's start off with a little random did you know. I just wanted to say, in case anyone was wondering, Tolkien was certainly fond of a drink himself. Both Tolkien and C.S. Lewis would often enjoy a beer or ale in the Eagle and Child pub, where they met as members of a literary discussion group that they called the Inklings.
The Inklings?
Tolkien and, the Inklings. Yeah, they had lots of Inklings, clearly, because
yeah,
this podcast wouldn't have come out without one of them, without half of them. Oh, there's beer in my laptop.
Do you know the name of Tolkien's friend group when he was in school?
Ah, God. Give me a clue. What does it begin with?
I don't remember. I've forgotten. It's just like their 4 initials, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, you're well. Oh
yeah,
you're
but did they
right.
take their initials and they made like a name
You're
out of their initials?
Right. Was a fucking the Brotherhood.
It was an acronym or
Fellowship
something.
It was but it was like the YMCA or something. But who knows what it was.
It was the YMCA. That's what it was.
I was saying that expression, "fond of a drink" in Ireland, we use that. I like that expression because especially in Ireland, we don't like to jump to the extreme of ever calling someone an alcoholic. We would like to say, oh, Uncle James, yeah, oh, he'd be fond of a drink, yeah, or he'd be fond of a drink or two.
That would basically mean he's an absolute raging alcoholic.
Yeah. It means he's had his stomach pumped 3 times. He's had 4 kidney transplants. His liver's gone. Yeah. And anyways, moving on. We're speedily moving through the races. We're on to hobbits next, which is a fun one. Obviously, we know plenty about hobbits drinking ales and beers, but what else do we know that they drank? We obviously talked about Bilbo's Old Wynyard. So we see a quote in the Fellowship, which goes, "Old Wynyards, a strong red wine from the South Farthing, and now quite mature, as it had been laid down by Bilbo's father." And yes, Johnny, you mentioned Bilbo's father, or he was the one that owned the Old Wynyards. His name was Bungo Baggins, and he died in the Third Age, 2926, or Shire reckoning would be 1326, making the wine at minimum 75 years old by the Third Age 3001, because that's when Bilbo's parties is at. And yeah, there you go. So it's a 75-year-old wynyard wine, so it's probably fairly tasty. And he was just offering it up to Gandalf like nothing. Yeah. Do you remember the song that's sung by the Hobbits and the Green Dragon? Or at least do you even remember Peter Jackson's one?
The one about there's a mug of beer inside this toque. That one.
Yeah. I will sing the first verse, and I think you'll be able to finish off in the second verse. So
I don't know. I think I've already I'll have a couple of legs.
Hey ho, to the bottle I go, to heal my heart and drown my woe. Rain may fall and wind may blow, but there'll still be many miles to go.
Sweet is the sound of the pouring rain, and from hill to plain. Feck.
Better than rain.
Better than rain, or something. It's a mug of beer inside this toque.
Hey! So just to clarify, that last verse there was, "Sweet is the sound of the pouring rain, and the stream that falls from hill to plain. Better than rain or rippling brook is a mug of beer inside this toque."
Hey! And then Pippin has to down his beer.
But yeah, I don't think we need to delay much more on the Hobbits. We all know they were fond of a drink, as we like to say here in Ireland.
I'm just going to give a little beer update on bit of a tilt test, a little bit going on there, but
So for our listeners, Johnny is about to pour his pint over his laptop, but Guinness is actually able to suck itself onto the side of the glass, and you'll notice the meniscus appears above the level of the glass. So we call that domage.
It's science.
You wouldn't understand. The dwarves, Jonathan, what did they drink?
Malt beer.
They do well. Now I was trying to find as much information on this as possible, and it's very difficult. But I did.
They definitely be drinking mead as well. They'd be drinking mead and malt beer and all sorts. Anything they can get their hands on, really, I'd say.
But I was trying to do some research and find some more answers into how they would have had malt beer or mead or whatever. But I came across this really interesting question on Reddit where somebody pondered exactly how would dwarves create this beer in the world of Middle-earth. And I just like the way they pose this question because they've really thought about every avenue and they're like, but how would they do this? Anyways, so Raucous Elephant on Reddit asks, and this is all taken quote from him, "Dwarves and malt beer. Now, I'm not sure what this is. It's got to be cereal based, so I'm banking barley. But where would the dwarves grow hops? The Iron Hills don't sound or look good for horticulture, and in Erebor they'd have to pay out of their noses. Not that it'd be impossible to trade with Lake Town, who would have to import from even beyond Mirkwood. As for Moria, I'm not sure, but I'd reckon dwarven beer to be unhopped, maybe flavoured with bog myrtle or something else. Gruit in technical terms. As for mead, beekeeping shouldn't be too difficult in their territories. Wonder if they'd have fruit meads. Did the dwarves have a lot of fruit to hand? So I like the way his question ends up being like, did the dwarves have a lot of fruit to hand? But like the nerdiness that was involved in that question and the pondering over the maps of Middle Earth. Yeah, that's the end there. Yeah.
That's so brilliant. I love how like he's obviously, you know, someone who's just got a high interest in brewing beers, and so he knows like, oh well, if you want to do this kind of beer, you're going to need to have like, you know, somewhere to get hops. You're going to need to be able to do whatever the fermentation process, etc. So if you're someone that's like your interest, it's like we've got like this thing where everyone's got their own little interests. And then everybody also is just like obsessed with Lord of the Rings. They're like, I'm going to put my interest into Lord of the Rings and just kind of like, you know, see what that is. And so, and then like Reddit is the place that you go, or like Quora answers or somewhere. And so I love going on Quora sometimes. Like, and you search like a Lord of the Rings based question, and then on the like right hand side of the screen, you get all these like related questions. And very often they've got nothing to do with your question, but they're all just like other random things that people are asking in the world of Lord of the Rings. And it's just like, it's so like weird and crazy. And then the kind of like elaborate answers that people come up with are just always incredible. So that's like, I enjoyed that. That was very good.
It's brilliant, and I only took the end of his the last paragraph. He had a couple of paragraphs before, because he I think he started off by saying something like, I'm writing an article on the different ways that different creatures would be able to like create their or brew their beers and ales in Middle Earth. So I have a couple of questions, and of course, like who's he asking? Like, he's the one writing the article, so who's going to be like, well, actually, in like 3009, the dwarves did import some mead from Mirkwood. And you're like, who are you asking, buddy? Like, you're the only one that cares about this topic. But I do like to. I find myself caring also, especially when it came to this episode. And to be fair, there were a few satisfactory answers in that mostly, that the dwarves mostly mined. It was their main activity, which we know, and they got lots of riches such as gold and mithril and whatnot. And then they traded them. They would trade these riches for food rather than growing their own food, which would include hops, for example. So I think that would have been quite enough. So,
is it canon, David? Is it canon that the dwarves would use their beards as napkins when they were spilling beer all over themselves?
What do we see that in? Is that in?
It's
Gimli
in the
does
Two
it?
Towers.
Gimli.
No,
does
sorry,
it,
it's in it's in the Return of the King.
Return of the King, yeah.
It is in the Golden Hall in Meadowside, where they're having a very serious discussion about war, and then Gimli's just there eating his booze.
Burping away.
He's just burping. He's like, oh, screw it.
I mean, you'd have to. If you have a giant napkin attached to your face all the time, you would.
It's like
it's a bib,
wearing an apron on your face.
Right, the final race that I'm going to talk about is Ents. We have Ents. What do Ents drink, Johnny?
Well, they drink water. Oh, and is it the Tom Bombadil quote that's then given to Treebeard in the movie, where he says, "You should not be waking. Dig deep. Drink water. Go to sleep."
I'm not thinking of any quotes. I'm just basically
okay. Well, what do they drink?
We see.
We also know that they have that water that then Merry and Pippin drink.
This drink or this water would be called Ent-Draught, and obviously we've already talked about orcs drinking grog, but it's actually called draft in the books. But anyways, the Ent-Draught, while not a traditional alcoholic beverage, the Ent-Draught is a drink mentioned in the Two Towers. Ents, the tree-like creatures, consume this magical water that invigorates and strengthens them. And we see this happen to Merry and Pippin as well. Pippin, as he starts to grow, he's pushing 3'8" when he's drinking this Ent-Draught. But that's all I have to say about like the creatures and drinks and stuff. But I just wanted to ask you as well, Johnny, can you think of any other intoxicating elements in Middle Earth? So not just like drinks, but other things that can intoxicate you. And by the way, I haven't done a thorough list of this. I'm actually curious to hear what you have to say. I wrote down a few answers of my own. Mushrooms, yeah, I had that. We have Saruman mentions in the Hobbit film that Radagast consumes mushrooms excessively, but this isn't a thing in the books.
We also have pipeweed, of course. We have,
pipeweed. I just want to throw in here Gandalf and Saruman's relationship with pipeweed, which is actually it's not marijuana, but I think it's interesting because we get a little hint of Saruman's character and his hypocrisy, I suppose, because he holds contempt for Gandalf because Gandalf smokes this pipeweed and is intoxicated. But at the same time, Saruman himself buys great quantities of Old Toby. And we see this in the movies as well when Merry and Pippin come across Old
And that's
Toby.
canon as well. That wasn't just put in by Jackson. In the books, Saruman actually was kind of a secret smoker, I suppose. He was a social smoker.
The social
like-
smoker.
He was like, only when I have a drink.
Yeah.
Saruman, he was on the vape.
Anything else? I had those two written down. Now you've got pipeweed, you've got mushrooms. Now think of things that you wouldn't ingest, but are just also intoxicating in the world of Middle Earth.
Lothlorien
Yeah, I suppose didn't have it written
is
down.
an,
But yeah, that's a good
is an
one.
intoxicating place because they kind of go into Lothlorien and they come out. They've no idea how many days they were in there or what was going on.
Yeah.
I suppose kind of maybe like Fangorn as well.
Yeah, another good one. I have Minas Morgul.
Oh, okay. Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. Is there like, could you be like the beauty of Galadriel or something like that? Would be like intoxicating.
You could, yeah. I just had this little section in here because I think there's obviously beers and ales, but there's so many periods in Lord of the Rings where people are just kind of drawn to something or like become weary of a place or an object or
Yeah, sure. Well, obviously, like the One Ring is intoxicating as well.
the One
That's
Ring
probably
would be
the most.
that's
Oh, right. Okay.
numero uno,
is-
I suppose.
Yeah, the most powerful
Um,
intoxication.
I have two others that I wrote down. I have Saruman's words, and I have the Dead
Ooh, very
Marshes as well. Do you know?
Nice.
Let's finish off our Mad Libs as well because I want to get some more from you. So Johnny,
I'm sure we
can
named
you
a few
give-
people there as well. So cheers to all those people that we just named.
Cheers. It's like we're drinking to their deaths or something. But
I don't know. We'll just say forearm,
right, give me a weapon.
battle axe.
Give me an adjective that might be used to describe an antique.
By the way, while I'm thinking of an adjective that might be used to describe an antique, do you ever actually explain to the listeners what Mad Libs is and what's actually happening here? They're just like, what the hell is going on?
Do people not know? Okay, do people not know Mad Libs? Sorry, Mad Libs
You explain it
is I'm asking Johnny for a couple of words. If you've gotten to this far in the podcast, you'd be like, right, I understand what's going on. But at the end, I'm going to put all. Normally, what happens is I'm going to put them all into a sentence. It'll say like, I went to the blank, and I would have asked Johnny previously to give me a noun, and he could say like chair. So it's I went to the chair, and we're basically filling in those blanks, but Johnny doesn't know what the sentence is. So at the moment, Johnny doesn't know what the Mad Libs game is about. So I'm going to present that at the end of the episode, and it'll all become clear.
Yes, very, very good. Well explained. And sorry, you asked me for an adjective that might be used to describe an antique. Dusty.
And finally, give me a disgusting adjective.
Foul.
Very good. Now that is the last time I will be asking you any Mad Libs. The next time
Aw.
we touch on them, we will be revealing what they are all about.
Looking forward to it.
There's a very alcoholic named river in Middle Earth. Johnny, do you remember the name of the river that the hobbits get, the Buckleberry Ferry?
Brandywine.
Well done. Brandywine. And I just wanted to give a bit of the etymology about the name Brandywine because it's cool, like Brandywine. The name Baranduin was Sindarin for, quote, golden brown river. The hobbits of the Shire called it in their language Brandanyin, meaning border water, which functioned as a sort of pun. Later, the pun Braldahim, meaning heady ale, was coined, and Brandywine is simply the English rendering of the same word as described by Tolkien. And I would also like to point out as well that Mary's surname is a mix of Old Book and Brandywine, which are the ancestry clans. So we know his name is Meriadoc Brandybook, so that's a mix of Old Book and Brandywine. So I just thought that was cool, and I had to shoehorn that somewhere into the podcast. Now,
Very good.
on to the Inns of Middle-earth. I just have to say first, as a precursor, I was heavily inspired by Matt from Nerd of the Rings and his video Inns and Pubs in Middle-earth. So for this section, I'd highly recommend checking his video out first of all, and thank you so much to Matt. I thought it was great, but I just thought that I couldn't omit this part or this section of the podcast because I think it's important when we're talking about alcohols because alcohols are very important. So, first of all, Johnny, how many pubs do you think are mentioned by name in Tolkien's works? Give us a guess. And like, I will let you know that it is not a huge amount.
We know the Green Dragon from the Shire. We know the Prancing Pony from Bree. I'm just gonna guess and say 9.
Oh my god, that is the correct answer.
What? Oh my god,
Yeah.
you're serious? No way.
No, that's a good.
Oh my god. I'm just so good at Lord of the Rings.
But yeah, like there's 9 and I could not find any more outside of that. But since we're talking about where would you guess most pubs that are mentioned in Tolkien's lore? Yeah, where do you think they're located?
Well, I'd say there's definitely a couple in the Shire, and then there's probably more than one in Bree that is mentioned. But like apart from that, probably quite a few mentioned in maybe Minas Tirith. I would say like they go into quite a lot of detail in Minas Tirith when they're going through like areas with like residents, and then there's areas with like, oh, this is where we keep the horses and blah blah. So I'd say he might just mention it in that particular part. So is your question?
What location are most pubs named?
I would say probably Minas Tirith.
Really?
I don't know why that came over me because I was just like,
I meant really because you're correct. No, you're not correct. You're not correct.
Okay. Bree?
It is in fact the Shire. Most of the pubs are in the Shire. In fact, all but one are in or near the Shire. So that I'm including Bree in that because it's right beside it.
Okay.
But yeah, obviously there are many pubs and inns in all the towns and cities within Rohan, Gondor, Erebor, etc. But here we're just going to talk about the ones mentioned by name by Tolkien. So, in fact, guys, if for our listeners, if you happen to have a Tolkien book handy with the map on it, this might be a good part to take out the map just for your own sake, because I might mention a couple of names so you can see the directions. So the first one, if you are a long-time listener of the Council of Elrond podcast, the number one Lord of the Rings podcast, you might remember our episode on Minas Tirith, where we talked about all the different areas within. Johnny mentioned it briefly there. So one of the pubs is called the Old Guest House in Minas Tirith. Beregond tells Pippin that if he wants a guide for the city, he should look for his son in the Rath Caladearn, or Lamprights Street, which was located on the lowest tier of Minas Tirith. The Old Guest House was located on this street and was described as a large building of grey weathered stone with 2 wings running back from the street, and between them a narrow greensward, behind which was the many-windowed house, fronted along its whole width by a pillared porch, and a flight of steps down onto the grass. Boys were playing among the pillars, the only children that Pippin had seen in Minas Tirith. So that is numero uno. That's the first pub. Well, sorry, it's not the first pub that's mentioned in Lord of the Rings, but that is the only pub that's mentioned in Minas Tirith and outside of the Shire and Bree. So number 2 is the Prancing Pony. So obviously many of our listeners and viewers will know this one. Where is it located, John?
I'm sure everybody will know this one. This one is located in Bree, and this is obviously a place where Gandalf tells Frodo that that's where he's going to meet him, and he never shows up.
Yes, exactly. Bree was on the crossroads of the Great East Road, which ran from the Grey Havens to Rivendell to Erebor and the Greenway. So it's the crossroads of the Greenway and the Great East Road. The Greenway is the road that ran from the once Arnorian city of Fornost in the north to Minas Tirith in the south. And yeah, the Butterbur family ran the Prancing Pony for years. It would be a popular spot for hobbits, men, and dwarves. And I actually like this. I like that little nod in the movie, how they have the door that opens for smaller sized people at the gate. Do you know? I just thought that was a movie thing. There's a lot of other times in all the movies where they call them halflings, or they don't know what they are. But yeah, like he knows exactly what they are, which I suppose I often just think Peter Jackson's movies, I'm like, they just have to say that for the audience. But like these people would know what hobbits are, which I just thought was pretty cool.
Hobbits?
Four hobbits.
I wanted to add in here as well that Torvald Hornblower travelled to Bree and likely visited the Prancing Pony. There he acquired a plant that he would go on to grow in the south farthing of the Shire. Do you know what this plant would have been called? It was the finest in the south farthing of the Shire.
Yeah. Long bottom leaf.
Yeah, okay. Old Toby.
Old Toby. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Torvald Hornblower, yeah. So, you already mentioned, so we know Prancing Pony is the meeting place of Gandalf and Thorin Oakenshield when they discuss their quest to reclaim the homeland of Erebor. You mentioned it's where the hobbits meet. I just wanted to put in here as well, after the War of the Ring, Gandalf and the hobbits returned and stayed in the Prancing Pony again. They tell Barleyman that Strider is now the High King of Gondor, and this comes to him in utter shock. Butterbur tells Sam that that Bill the Pony has returned safely to Bree as well. So I think that's nice as well. I actually have to say as well that most of the stuff that I'm talking about is reference from Tolkien's 1960 rewrite of The Hobbit, which was never actually completed. So it's up to the listeners if it's canon or not. But I like to think it is, because it probably would have been released. But yeah, that's the Prancing Pony. Number 3 is the Forsaken Inn, and it's another inn mentioned in the borders of Breeland. Aragorn mentions in the Fellowship of the Ring chapter, A Knife in the Dark, none have measured the road between Rivendell and the Forsaken Inn, a day's ride east of Bree. So therefore we know that it's a day's ride east of Bree. So that's the location of this place.
That's also the name of Star Wars Episode 7.
Forsaken Inn. The Force Awakening. Ah.
That's not how the Force works.
Right, so those are the 3 pubs that are outside the Shire, technically. So the rest, guys, if you have a map, I encourage whipping it out, as she did say. So number 4, we have, this is short, All Welcome Inn. So this is meant to be one of the stops for Thorin's company. It's west of the village of Frogmorton. So if you have your maps, go look for Frogmorton. It is west.
I've just come up with the name of a pub.
Oh, have you?
Yes. What is our name, Dave? What are we called? You and I.
Melonheads.
Right. If you remove heads, use the first part, and then you take a phrase, which is an Elvish phrase. Very commonly, melon will be followed by the next word.
Melonin? Oh, the Melonin. Oh, yes. I like that.
The Melonin. Basically, to people that don't know what we're talking about, melon, of course, we are the melon heads. The melon is the Elvish word for friend. Very often when you see Elvish things at the end, they will say melonin, which basically is like my friend or something like that at the end.
Yeah, very good. That would be a good name. Yeah, Melonin. So actually, I like that, and I'm gonna come back to like names of pubs as well, because that's interesting, and yeah, we'll get there. But number 5 we have is the Floating Log, which is very near the previously mentioned pub, the All Welcome Inn, and it's located within the village of Frogmorton. It's also on the East Road. It's known as a good inn. It's mentioned in the final chapters of Return of the King, The Scouring of the Shire, and it was mentioned because it was closed down when Sharky and the ruffians took over the Shire, but hopefully it reopened after COVID. So I mentioned Sharky, so let's have another drink. Number 6 is the Golden Perch, and interestingly, it's not named after a bird rest. The name comes from a type of fish that's in that area. It is located in the town Stock, north of Buckleberry, near the eastern borders of the Shire. It was said by Pippin to serve the best beer in the East Farthing. It was probably favoured by local fishermen, hence the name. In the chapter Shortcut to Mushrooms, Pippin suggests taking a shortcut to the Golden Perch, but Frodo responds, "Shortcuts make delays, but inns make longer ones." So there you go. Frodo is a wise man, and he's got a lot of willpower.
He knows what's going on.
Neither you or I possess that kind of willpower. Number 7 is the Bridge Inn. I love all these names, by the way. They sound very like English to me. Do you know when you go to England and they don't really have surnames? Like in Ireland, we've got like McGettigans or like O'Brien's or whatever. But in England, you go over there and they've got like the Boar's Head and the King's Stallion.
Most English pubs are called, it's like the noun and noun. It's like, the elephant and thistle,
Yes.
I don't know, the king and wheelbarrow. That's a very typical like English way of naming a pub as well.
Now, I heard ages ago, and for any English listeners, I'd like you to tell me if this is right or wrong, but I heard that... So in Ireland, all of the pubs are usually named after the surname of people, so like O'Brien's or O'Regan's or whatever. But in England, apparently all the pubs are owned by like massive breweries, or they're individually owned. Like you can own a pub, but you are still owned by some sort of other corporation.
Conglomerate.
And that's why, and that's why you can't name a lot of them after your surname, because it has to be some sort of fancy name that will be attractive to the people in that area. So that's something I heard. So I don't know, is that true or not?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Number 7 is the Bridge Inn. This is the west side of the Brandywine Bridge. This inn is actually destroyed completely by Sharky and his men. It's torn down and replaced with a guardhouse. And it is here where Frodo, Sam, Merry and Pippin are arrested by the Shire sheriffs. This is obviously during the scouring of the Shire. And we don't know whether the inn was ever rebuilt after the restoration of the Shire. Number 8, and the second last one, is the Ivy Bush. It's located on Bywater Road. It is mentioned in the Fellowship of the Ring as the favourite watering hole of Hamfast Gamgee, and that's where the name comes up. That's Sam's old gaffer. Here he met with some older hobbits, such as Ted Sandyman and Daddy Twofoot, about Frodo Baggins and the rumoured treasure of Bag End. It's believed that Tolkien named this pub after the real Ivy Bush that's located in Birmingham, England. Can you think of the only pub that I haven't mentioned, which is probably the most famous pub in all of Middle-earth?
The Green Dragon?
The Green Dragon, located in Bywater, closest in to Hobbiton, which explains a lot. This was a popular location to the hobbits from Bywater and Hobbiton, as it was located 1 mile southeast from the bridge leading to Bag End. The Green Dragon is the starting point for the quest of Erebor. We obviously see it in the Fellowship, and Sam talks about how he has engaged in lots of gossip, just like his old gaffer, Hamfast, in the Ivy Bush. And it's here where Sam talks about the mysterious tree men spotted in the North Moors by his cousin Halfast. The Green Dragon is also victim to Sharky's doings in the scouring of the Shire. We see it called lifeless, with broken windows and half a dozen ruffians lounging against the inn wall. But finally, when the Shire is reclaimed, the Green Dragon is restored and becomes even more of a hub for merry singing and laughing. And we have a lot of examples of us doing some sing-songs and laughing in this podcast. But I think that brings us to this point of the episode where we're going to whip out the...
Mad Libz?
I was going to do the Mad Libz. Just before I do the Mad Libz, do you know that game, the Lord of the Rings online game? It's just this huge online multiplayer game. Lotro. Well done, Johnny. That's very good. In that game, there's nearly 100 listed named pubs in Middle-earth that you can visit, which is really cool. It's really detailed. And of course... they have all the pubs I just mentioned previously, the 9 pubs, but I wanted to just share 1 or 2 of the other cooler named ones. Like, don't worry, there's no information, but in the Shire, we have the Fox and Fiddle, the Elbows Bend, the Roaring Bull, and again, these remind me of like English pubs. In Moria, we have the 21st Hall Inn, and I think just even the name gives you meaning to how huge Moria is. And then finally, in this other area, Old Anorian, we have the Mumuk and Keep, the Laughing Halfling, Splintered Shield, Hammer and Tongs, and the Eagle and Sickle. So there you go. There's over 100, or there's nearly 100, sorry.
Yeah, class.
Names.
Some good ones there.
But there are some good ones. And that brings us on to Mad Libz. So obviously I mixed up the questions, so it wouldn't be obvious exactly what we were doing, but I can reveal the purpose was to have your own personal names for Middle-earth pubs. So
okay.
So I I made this up, so they're not sentences. The first pub that we have here, I was looking for a Shire pub, and I asked you for a couple of things. Now I don't have them written down here exactly what I asked you, but from your answers, your Shire pub would be called the South Blue Breeze. So there you go.
The South Blue Breeze.
The South Blue Breeze.
I knew that was going to be difficult for you.
I'm awful bad for tongue twisters, aren't I? Right, next I have a Gondorian pub. And what you named the Gondorian pub was the Dusty Mace.
I like that. That's cool.
The Dusty Mace. Now, I put in a Harad pub, like an evil pub here. And you called it the Swift Bearded Battle Axe.
Oh, sounds like a nice drink.
And now the final one I have here is the Mordor pub. And this one is the Foul Hobbit's Forearm.
The Foul Hobbit's Forearm. Yeah, very good. Very good. That's
so
cool.
There you go, guys. We have the Shire pub is the South Blue Breeze. The Gondorian pub is the Dusty Mace. The Harad pub is the Swift Bearded Battle Axe. And the Mordor pub is the Foul Hobbit's Forearm. And those are the answers that Johnny came up with. He didn't know what he was doing, but there you go. And
wow, that was good, Dave. Well done.
Thank you. It was fun to make. So, what do you guys think of those? Please let me know what you would call your Middle Earth pub and where it would be located. I'd be very interested to know. But yeah, Johnny, do you think you would frequent the Foul Hobbit's Forearm or the Dusty Mace?
I think I'd stay away from the Foul Hobbit's Forearm, to be quite honest. But the Dusty Mace sounds cool, even though it's in Harad, which is probably a bit too hot for me. But, I'd have to get the factor 40
It's a bit hot.
The factor 50
it's also far. It's so far. You'd have to get a taxi out there, and then you have to get a taxi
get about
home.
4 different camels, and you'd be aged.
But it's only 3 steps for a Mumak.
Oh, yeah. Get a little ride on the back of a Mumakil. Yeah, I don't know. I'd probably keep it local, to be quite honest, if that was if it was up to me.
Yeah. You'd probably go for the South Blue Breeze.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good to me. And guys, if you've made it this far into the podcast, please give us a like and give us a subscribe because obviously you're enjoying this content.
Yeah, like, subscribe, share with your friends. Actually, importantly, something to help us out massively would be if you leave a review or leave like a 5-star rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever your streaming choice is. That would be great. That really helps the algorithm, and it would help us grow the podcast. But also tell your friends. I was actually talking to somebody on Twitter today, and they were saying like, "Oh my god, I just came across your podcast. Really enjoying it. Now my friends are going to be so annoyed because I'm constantly talking about Lord of the Rings." And I just said to them, "Listen, dude,
you need better friends."
No, I was going to say, tell them about the podcast as well. Corrupt them.
If your friends are annoyed that you're talking about Lord of the Rings, who are you hanging out with?
No pauses, no spills.
And no regurgitation.
So, it's a drinking.
Last one standing wins.
Well, anyways, guys, that includes this episode discussing all the Middle-earth ales and pubs. I hope you've enjoyed yourselves, and I hope you drank responsibly if you joined us. Don't forget to leave us a 5-star review, like I mentioned, and if you enjoyed it, you can always reach out to us on Twitter at melon_heads. That's melon with 2 L's. Or on Instagram, where we're called Melon Heads Official. So we had such a blast, and we're about to get even more blasted. So we look forward to seeing you.
Cracking open another beer there now.
Johnny's cracking open another one. I'm probably going to crack into another one myself. And we look forward to seeing you in the next one, probably. I hope, yeah. We wish you a very fond farewell.
See you guys.